Greetings, BUSN 1315 Leadership students in the online section this 2017 spring semester. Welcome back from spring break. You've just completed your first week back, and so I wanted to reach out to you, just touch base, talk about some important information for our course, just make sure we're all moving in the same direction. And I really wanted to talk about three things today. The three important things are, first of all, to welcome you back. Hard for me to believe as I looked at the schedule. I said, wow, we're entering into week number 9 already. And so that means it's always a good time to do a schedule check, look at what's ahead, look at what we've accomplished, and kind of think about what we need to do and what we need to think about as we approach the last portion of the semester. At that time, that tends to put students' minds on their grade in this course. The midterm is a time to stop and reflect, review the syllabus, see what you need to be doing so that when you finish, you are finishing with the best grade possible, so that you're always doing your very best in the course. And that's so important. So welcome back. Let's start out by looking at the schedule. You may recall, let me go back to the top, you may recall at the beginning of the semester that I emailed you this schedule, but it's also always available to you in pause in the content section of our course, and I'll review that with you in just a moment. But remember when you got this schedule and you said, oh my goodness, this is a 6-page schedule, so much to do, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Maybe you were nervous and confused, or maybe just excited to get started, but nevertheless you did all the activities on this page, and you got to the bottom of that first page, you watched the movie 12 O'Clock High, you were doing unit quizzes, and you said, let me turn the page and continue on, and you watched the movie Hotel Rwanda, and you saw the concepts from Unit 2, Leading by Serving, and certainly Paul Rusesabagina was an excellent example of somebody who grew into a servant leader. And you really saw the concepts from our chapter, our Unit 2, applied in that movie, and you did your discussion board posting, and you kept moving forward through these assignments and through this work, and you finished Unit 4, and then you turned the page again, and already, before you knew it, you were on page 3 of this schedule, and you were doing quizzes and doing discussion boards, and you were looking ahead, I have no doubt, to spring break, but you also knew that you had your first exam on the horizon, and you jumped in there and you did that exam, wonderful, because I looked at the exam average and the number of participants. All students participated in the exam, and that is a really good thing. And our class average was the mid-80s. We were in the mid-80s. The high grades were up in the A's, and so that's something to aspire for. If we have an average that is a middle-of-the-road B, that means some students did better, some students did not do quite as well, which is why we also want to look at this syllabus at this point, think about grades, think about what we need to do. An important point is to say don't get discouraged, but I want to talk to all students, whether you did good or whether you did poorly on the exam and on your previous assignments. I want to talk to all students about how to look at your grade and how to see where you are in the course, and that, as I said, is the third item in our agenda. So let me continue to pat you on the back, because as you looked at this schedule, you actually turned the page over into page 4 as you came back from the break, and hopefully you did well with Unit 7 and the quiz on that. And now we have an optional movie, and I'll just do a little promotional here for our optional movie assignment. I really hope that you do, even though there's no grade associated with watching this movie, 12 Angry Men, I hope that you watch this movie as a study of the concepts that you read about in Unit 7, making decisions. Because when we're making decisions, what better group to evaluate than a jury? And that's what 12 Angry Men is about. It's about 12 men in the jury box who have to come to a decision. Obviously a very, very important decision. It's a classic movie. I think you'll enjoy it, but I also think you'll never look at it the same, when you read the Unit 7 concepts and you see those applied in that movie. I did say, we were entering Unit 9, so please do that. And then, of course, whenever you have to make a decision, you're going to have conflict. The best teams, I mean the absolute best teams, people do not see everything the same way 100% of the time. So you're going to have conflict, and part of leadership is helping your team go through that conflict, maybe helping yourself go through that conflict, so that there are positive outcomes and that the team continues to function effectively. So even looking into week 10, you're going to have this great optional movie, Freedom Riders, and that is a very popular movie. If you haven't seen it already, I think that you will enjoy that movie. And again, it's enjoyment in the sense that it's a wonderful movie, but you see the concepts that you're going to be reading about. So I won't do that for every single chapter, but as you look ahead, there's lots of things to talk about. Our SLO quiz, I'll talk about that. I just recently heard from a student that the SET is open, and so even though that's something I would typically talk about later, I might mention that. So excuse me for being just a little bit long in this video, but I think this is just a good opportunity to touch base and make sure we're all focused on the same things. Okay, so keep this schedule in front of you. I understand that many students make their own calendars so that you have a combination of your work life, your family life, and your courses. And I realize many of you are in more than one. So maybe you've consolidated all this into your calendar, which is fantastic. But don't lose track of all the details that are on this schedule as well. Okay, so that's our schedule, and really what that means is that we've welcomed you back. We've looked at week 9 as well as into week 10. We've done this schedule check, as part of that, and now let's talk about grades a little bit. All right. So I'm going to pull up our course in PAWS. I know you're very familiar with PAWS at this juncture in our semester, and I hope that you do what I do when I go into PAWS, which is I look underneath content. When you first came into content, and let me tell you this, I am viewing this under a demo account, a demonstration account. Instead of J. McGrory, it has Z. McGrory. Many of your faculty members have a Z account, which just indicates this is a fictitious student account so that I can show you things in a way that it looks exactly the same as it looks to you. Otherwise, it gets a little confusing because it doesn't look exactly the same. Okay? So when you first came in here, remember back at the beginning of the semester and you looked at this table of contents, again, you may have found it a bit overwhelming, but you went through and you looked at, how this course is going to go. And then under this How It Works category, and oftentimes I click on the category, you were able to find the syllabus. There's the schedule. I was talking about the schedule, and maybe even went through, posted your introduction and all those types of things. And then each week, you've been hopefully, clicking through, looking at the chapters and the assignments, and we've talked about how you've really moved through those all the way through the first exam. Now, let me go ahead and talk a little bit about this SLO exam, because when you can read about this, I do have some great information here as well as a practice quiz. Let me go ahead and click on this information. You may be familiar with an SLO, Student Learning Objective Test, from other business classes at our college. What this test does is it's at the end of the semester and it assesses your knowledge of the 5 basic objectives, the 5 principal objectives of our course. What were those 5 objectives? Well, if I pull up my syllabus, syllabus, these are those objectives, student learning objectives. And it says the SLO quiz at the end of the course will assess your understanding of these topics. Now, at the very end of the semester, the quiz, the SLO quiz, will be a graded assignment, and it will simply ask you 3 multiple choice questions on each one of these objectives. But maybe, I could just say if you've learned the material, then surely you will be able to answer these questions. But maybe you want to do some focused studying for this particular test. Well, in PAWS, let me go back to this category, SLO exam, preparing for the exam. That's what this quiz is. There are no points associated with taking this practice quiz, but it is a study tool that will simulate the SLO test. You can, of course, look up answers and see how you do. Take the quiz as many times as you want so that you're studying and studying and studying. And in that way, if I scroll down, see how this is the preparing category. Later on, you will receive instructions on how to take the required test. All right? So make sure you're doing that in terms of making sure you get the best grade possible. Another thing is that you might be familiar with is the SET. This is the Student Evaluation of Teaching. And I have some instructions for you here, and I do something just a little bit different than perhaps my colleagues do. Every semester I hear students talk, just in passing in the hallway and with each other about, Dr. So-and-so is an excellent teacher. Oh, Dr. So-and-so is not an excellent teacher. I wish our book was better. I wish we would spend more time on this or on that. That type of feedback that is important for your instructors and gives you a voice when you communicate that to your instructors. And so the way that you get that voice is you go out and you complete the Student Evaluation of Teaching. Unfortunately, a lot of students just don't take the time to do that. So I give you bonus points to encourage you to do it, but I want you to do it not just for my class, but for every class. Notice the instructions here for all the classes that you are enrolled in order for you to receive points. Now, you would never ever give me your answers to the SET. You would simply submit into this Dropbox, into this pause Dropbox, your confirmation page. And what the confirmation page lists is your name, and it also lists the course that you're enrolled in, and it says yes, thank you next to every course under the column of has this evaluation been completed. So the confirmation page that you're going to submit, if you want those bonus points, will say that you have completed, yes, thank you, the evaluation for every class for which you are enrolled. Okay? So, moving forward, you're looking at Unit 7. We're talking about that in terms of the schedule. But you're kind of wondering, since you have finished this first test, wonder what my grade is in this class. Well, let me tell you what I do when I determine your grade. The first thing I do, because I teach several classes, and I am sure that you are enrolled in several classes, I go to the syllabus. And when I get ready to calculate your grade, I say, now what did I tell these students that would become part of their grade? So as I look through the syllabus, and I'm going to scroll down, this is the time when you're a little more focused on how are you scoring it. Okay, so find the part in your syllabus. This is what I do. I go down to assessments and grading, and I say, what did, and in fact this brings up a very important point for our class in particular. Remember when you looked at this at the start of the semester, the things that were probably important to you were how you take the individual assignments. So you were focused on things like this. For each quiz, you have unlimited attempts. Remember that? For each quiz, you're required to make a minimum score. I hope you're still paying attention to that minimum score requirement, because it does mean that if you have quiz grades out there that are a C or a D or an F, you're not getting any points for that, because here in the syllabus it said scores less than 80%, that minimum grade requirement will become a 0 during the final calculation of your grade. So when I get ready to do the final calculation of your grade, I'll convert those scores, 65%, 75%, I'll convert those to 0, because you knew you had unlimited attempts, but that you were expected to make at least an 80% or above, right? Now, what else do I have to think about as I go through here? Well, also, of all your quiz scores, your lowest quiz score will be dropped. So as I look ahead to these quiz assignments, I know that out of these 10 quizzes, because remember Unit 4, this is a Part 1 and Part 2, my lowest quiz grade, let's say I totally forgot about Unit 1 quiz, so I made a 0. I would certainly want that to be dropped. Or maybe right before the test, right before spring break, I got particularly busy. Maybe I didn't do so well on Unit 5. Maybe I only scored a 75%, which I know is going to convert to a 0. Well, if that's your absolute lowest grade, then that would be dropped, right? And I'm going to explain to you how to do that. So, those are some things that when I think about my final grade in this class, I need to be aware of. But let's look a little bit further because we have other assignments like our pause discussion. And again, in the beginning of the semester, you were probably more focused on, wait a minute, I have 2 discussion board postings. What do I have to do? I have to watch these movies. Where do I get them? Oh, I get them at the library. So you were focused on the details of completing the assignments. Now that you've completed some of the assignments, you're going back through to say, how is this graded? And I'm scrolling because here you see, okay, each part of that assignment, and you've seen this in the feedback that I give to you on your grade, each part of the assignment was 10 points. Now, I wonder, how many assignments were there? Well, I'll go through and look at all that. And we only have, one left. Norma Ray's the last posting left. So we have one 20-point assignment left. But I wonder, as I look through this, did I have a drop grade? Well, there is no drop grade, big, bold type, no drop grade for the discussion. So I know that I don't. I have a drop grade among the quizzes. I do not have one for the discussion. So I need to remember that in my grade. Now, here are assignments we haven't done yet. The SLO exam, I told you that would be 3 questions on each of those 5 objectives. That means it's 15 questions. Multiple choice, and ultimately it's going to count 45 points. So I have that looking ahead. We've finished our very first test, and that was 100 points. But I know, looking forward, that I have 2 more tests that lie ahead. What if I didn't do so well on that first exam? Well, look at here, your lowest exam grade is dropped. Okay, so once again, I have a drop grade there to consider. What if I want to do some extra credit? Well, I emailed you an excellent extra credit opportunity. I hope some students will take advantage of that. And it tells you how those points are just added into the total number of points that you earn, not on top of your final grade, part of the overall points that you earn. And so again, that's important in terms of how I calculate my final grade in this class. Now, what I told you, and again, this is going to be relevant to some important information that I'm conveying in this video, is that you would have 525 total points possible. And that means that you're going to have 200 points worth of test grades, because one of those is dropped. It means that you have, this is 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 points in the discussion, because we have no drop grade there. And if I go back up to these quizzes, I would have 180 points, because each one of the quizzes was 20 points, and I have 1 drop grade, right? Because you see 10 quizzes, I would have 1 drop grade. All right, so as a student, how could I look at my grade at this point in the class when I know there are at least 4 quizzes that we haven't taken? There is at least 1 discussion that we have not completed yet, the discussion on Norma Ray. We have not done the SLO test exam yet, and there are still 2 tests that are outstanding. Well, how can I determine my grade? So let's look at that. The first thing you want to do in pause is click on assessment and then grades. Each student will see an individual listing of his or her personal grades so far in this class. And the first thing that I observed when I looked in this grade list was really one error on my part, which we're going to take care of, I'm going to explain to you, and one just detail that you need to pay attention to. Let me start with this detail. Notice that we have a pause quiz here, and this, once upon a time in this course, was a graded assignment, but that quiz has been a little iffy in our online orientation. Hasn't been available for a little while. So anyway, in the syllabus, I say all that to say this, in the syllabus, this pause quiz was not a graded assignment. So when you see this grade item listed here, just ignore it. Just ignore it, because this is not, if you have points there, they really don't mean anything. They just mean that you took the quiz, but it doesn't really count for anything. And that is in the syllabus, because as I look at the syllabus, it's I'm sorry, let me go back up here. The only things that earn grades are the Unit 1 quiz and the Unit 2 quiz. There's no generic pause quiz in there for earning points. Now, notice that these quizzes in the syllabus were 20 points each. And that's how we came up with, sorry if I'm making you nauseous, this 525 total points possible. Well, I was looking at pause, and I was looking at the syllabus, which is exactly what I'm telling you to do, and I noticed that in pause, these are listed as 10 points. You know what I realized? I have different master copies for this course, and I updated the other master copies, but I did not update this online master copy. So when it became available to you, it still showed that the quizzes were 10 points rather than 20 points. Folks, this is an easy fix. I just want to let you know. What I'm going to do, this is my pretend student account. And so for this Unit 1 quiz, the system shows that I earned 8 out of 10 points. But I need to count this as 20 points. So I'm just going to double it, right? I'm going to say that instead, this student made 16 out of 20 points. Instead of 9 out of 10 points, this student, my pretend student, made 18. So when I calculate your grade, and when you calculate your grade, just remember that important detail. And I'll tell you how you can calculate your grade in just a moment, all right? Now the study tool, remember that I said there are no points associated with this, but the system doesn't allow me to put something in with 0 points and also show you some of the details that I needed to show you. So when you see this 0.01, just again, ignore this in the same way that you're going to ignore this pause quiz up here. Okay, so are you ready to learn how to calculate your grades? I'm going to show you. Okay, so I do want to tell you, how do I calculate your grade? You may want to get out a paper and pencil for this. As for me, I'm going to do this in Excel. If you are an Excel person, you can certainly do this in Excel for yourself. I'm using Excel because it makes it easy for me to bring this up on the screen and to show you what we're talking about. If you look at the syllabus explains to you, let me pull the syllabus back up, how do I calculate my grade? And it says to calculate your grade, first determine the points earned by simply adding up all the points that you have earned throughout the semester and then dividing by the total points possible. In our course, there will be 525 points available, and so I go through an example, and you can follow along with this with Anna Apple. But at this particular point in the semester, we haven't finished all the assignments. So if we were to add up the points that we have earned and divide by 525, we probably would have an F in the class because we've only completed about half of the assignments. So even if we got 100 on everything, we would only have 50% of the points possible, right? So we don't want to do that. But that being said, this is still a super easy process to do. I'm going to label this first column earned. These are the points that I have earned so far. This is quiz grades, this is extra credit points, any point that I have earned. Then in the next column, I'm going to label this possible. And this is the required number of points, or if I had gotten a perfect score on the assignment, how many points were possible. So, what have I earned so far? Well, notice that the attendance, the first reporting date, was a bonus point, and I earned 1 point, right? This is the one part that some students find a little tricky, but I'm going to let you in on the secret, and then it won't be tricky to you anymore. That means that I earned 1 bonus point, but I was not required to earn any points. So in terms of points possible, when it's a bonus point, there was none. You know, we could call this possible. Maybe we could also say this is the required points. There were no required points. It was all bonus. So this counts completely in my favor. Well, I'm going to look down to the next grade. And this was paused, and I asked you, please ignore this, because in the syllabus there's no mention of this. How about the second reporting date? Well, my pretend student, Z. McGrory, did not take the second reporting quiz. She forgot about it, so she didn't earn any points. If you took it, if you earned that bonus point, you would make another entry exactly as shown here. 1 point earned, but 0 points required. Now let's look down at the Unit 1 quiz. I earned 8 points. And usually what I would do, if I was calculating your grade, is I would say that you earned 8 points and that 10 points were possible. But as I explained, I made an error. And these should count for 20 points rather than 10. So we're simply going to double that. 8 times 2 is 16. 10 times 2 is 20. Now I'm going to do that for each quiz that I've done so far. Instead of entering 9 points possible, 9 times 2 is 18. And 10 points possible times 2 is 20. And again, this is because in the syllabus, you are told that these quizzes would count 20 points. And so they will. Quiz 3, I did great on that. I had 10 points, but I'm doubling that. 10 times 2 is 20 out of 10 points possible, but that's multiplied by 2, 20. Now, with the Unit 4 quiz, there were 2 parts to that, right? But you'll notice that these combine for 20 points possible. So I made a perfect score on part 1 of the quiz, but at 13 on the second part of the quiz, notice that this count adds up to 20. This is the one situation where I do not have to double it, because when I fixed this, remember we had a little problem with the points not showing up correctly. Well, I was looking at the syllabus, I understood that it needed to be 20 points. So this part is correct. 18 out of 20 points, right? You see that? How about this part? Unit 5 quiz, I got an 8.5. Now, you can use your calculator if you find this difficult in Excel. I love this little function. I'm going to say 8.5, times 2. There's my score right there is a 17. 10, I could do that for this, but by this time, right? Because I'm just doubling, just as I told you. If it's not equal to 20 points. Same thing here. 9.5 times 10. Well, I know that if I said 9.5 times 2, that would be 19 out of 20 points possible. Okay. How about the Unit 7 quiz? Is the due date, is that quiz due yet? Well, if I haven't had the opportunity to earn the points yet for quiz 7, quiz 8, quiz 9, even quiz 10, or the SLO exam, then there's no sense in me writing those down, because it would imply that I failed assignments that I just simply have not had the opportunity to complete yet. So for now, simply skip any assignment that has not passed the due date. You can do this at any point in the semester. Now, let me go continue on into the discussions. Oh, and I forgot to post my pretend students some grades. So pretend along with me, if you would. Well, for the first post, I forgot to post. Well, now is when those consequences hit. I earned 0 points out of 20 points possible. How about the Unit 2 and 3 discussion? Well, it looks like, and I just kind of arbitrarily post some feedback in here. It looks like I didn't post correctly. Wow, this is when that is really hurting me. So I got 0 points again out of 20 points. Now, for this third posting, the Unit 4 chapter posting, let's just, for the sake of our example, pretend that I did earn some points. Maybe I earned 15, 16 points, out of 20, whatever you earned, type that in. But have we had the opportunity to finish the Unit 5 and the Unit 10 discussion? If you're watching this video and you have grades for those assignments, by all means enter them in. Hopefully you got on this Unit 5 discussion a perfect score. Some students did. Enter that in. Well, for sure, we have not completed the Unit 10 discussion yet, so for now, I'm not going to enter anything because there has not been the opportunity to earn those points. How about the exams? Well, we have completed one exam. We have not had the opportunity to complete the last two exams. I made a 92. These are the points that I earned out of 100 points possible. Let's just stop and reflect on what we've done. We have put in bonus points that we've earned. The quiz grades we had to double because there was an error, and I apologize for that. That is my fault. I wish I was a perfect human being, but I'm not, so I apologize for that. But it does not hurt you in any way because all we have to do to correct that is double those points. Here I have some zeros for my discussion points, and it is worthwhile to note that this was a quiz. I am going to put that in there. In fact, I'm copying and pasting because it's going to become important to know that these were discussions, and this was an exam, okay? Now, what other points have I earned? Notice these are bonus opportunities here. If you participated in the service learning, the volunteering, let's say, at the 2017 Small Business Symposium, you might have some extra credit points there. If you completed the SET confirmation for all your courses and submitted it, you might, I haven't graded those yet, but you might have some bonus points there. If so, you know that you would have earned 5 points with 0 points required, right? So that's how you would enter it if you earned those points. For now, I'm not going to enter those points because I'm going to show you the impact that they have. Okay, now let's go back to the syllabus. Oops, syllabus. I'm not quite ready to calculate my grade because, as you remember, in the syllabus information, it said that your lowest quiz score will be dropped. Now, sometimes when students are calculating midterm grades, they don't drop the low score because you may assume that you have a grade later in the semester that might be a low score. For our purposes, I want to explain to you how to drop a grade. The mistake that a lot of students make is they'll say, well, among my quizzes, here's my quizzes, right? See all the quiz grades. Among my quiz grades, my lowest score is this 16, and so I'm going to drop it, and they delete that. Well, that would be terrible because that would count against you. That would count as if you had gotten a 0 out of a 20-point possible assignment. So you have to delete the 20 required points as well. So to drop a grade, you drop both parts of it. Now, I'm going to put that back because I'm going to give you one other scenario. As you look through your quiz grades, which you so nicely recorded in here, if you made less than an 80%, which is 16 out of 20, that grade is actually a 0. So let's say that as you're looking at these quiz grades, you see that you actually made a 13 on the first quiz, and you made a 10, I hope not, but you made a 10. And you said, oh, I'm going to drop the lowest grade. Well, yeah, maybe the 10 is your lowest grade, but the truth of the matter is that neither one of these quizzes met the minimum 80% requirement. So the truth of the matter is that both of those grades are 0, okay? So which one do you want to drop? Well, you can certainly pick, but just make sure that you drop both the points earned as well as the points possible. Now let's look at the discussions. Well, we don't have a drop grade on the discussions, so we're okay. We also don't have a minimum score requirement on the discussions, so there's no adjustments to be made. As we look at the test, remember that you do have a drop grade. There's no minimum grade requirement, but you will ultimately have a drop grade. For now, you don't have any other exams available, so you can't yet drop any grades there. All right, so far, these are all the points that we could have possibly earned throughout this semester. So I'm just going to kind of do a very simple thing here. I'm going to click in this cell. Well, I tell you what, I'll even label this as the total value. And this, oops, well, give me a chance. This is where Excel is really, really helpful, because it has this built in. Now, you don't have to know Excel. You can do this pencil and paper, right? Did I get all the cells there? Nope, I missed one cell. Okay, so I'm just adding up everything in these rows. So far, I have earned 202 points, and so far, I could have earned 280 points. So what the syllabus explains, how do I calculate my grade, is that we add up the points after we've applied the rules of the syllabus, and we simply say points earned divided by points possible, and there's my grade. Now, I would convert this to a percentage, a 72, so I have a C. Now, it's also a low C, so maybe I'm a little concerned. So what I can start to do is really a couple things. I can say to myself, well, I wish I hadn't made zeros on those quizzes, but realistically, I did, and so one of those zeros I would like to believe it will be dropped. But perhaps I participate in one of the service learning projects and I earn bonus points, and I can earn up to 5 bonus points. And when I earn a bonus point, it's a point that I've earned even though no points were required. And do you see how that brought my grade up from a 72 to a 74, right? So that's a good thing. Now, there are more grades throughout the semester. I'm going to insert a blank line. Nice thing about computers, but on paper you might have to, put an arrow and say add this up. If this was my Unit 1 quiz, and this was my Unit 2 quiz, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and I have not yet taken the Unit 7 quiz, well, I'd really like to do well. What would the impact be on my grade if I did really, really well? Like a perfect score. Well, that moves me up to a 76%. Now, my grade on exam number 1 was pretty good, but what if, as I go through the semester, for the next exam, what if I do well again? Again, a 90. Let's assume I can do at least as well as I did last time. If I do really, really well on my next exam, then I'll have an 80%. So do you see how, first of all, I was able to determine where my grade stood in the semester, a 72%, and then I was able to start to consider how my future grades could bring my overall grade up if I continue to work really hard. We know that we have one more discussion posting left. So if I consider this next discussion posting, what if again I watch Norma Ray, I do a good job posting, I follow all the instructions for the discussion posting? Wow. I mean, I'm starting to become a firm B instead of just, ooh, I barely made it over the hump with an 80. So do you see how that is starting to do well? Now, let me tell you the other side of the coin. We do have many more, not many, but we have several more quizzes. Let's say I make a 10, out of 20. In the computer, that would, would look a little different, look like a 5 out of 10, but you would double it to get a 10 out of 20. Well, you're looking at this and you're saying, well, it's not bad, it's a 79. But what do you know? You know there's no such thing as a 10, because the syllabus was very clear, and it said you have a minimum grade requirement. Scroll back up here. This is what I do as your instructor. This is what all your instructors do. And it said that you had to make an 80%. Now, out of 10 points, that's just simply 8 out of 10. So, obviously, if you made a 5 out of 10, which, we've doubled here, that's not 80%. So that's a 0. See how that 0 really drags down that grade? Oh, try to avoid those folks. And that just means making time to work on those quizzes. And so you see how important those are. But then let's try to do really well. Let's start out and say if I made the minimum on the chapter quiz for 9, well, it pulls me up, but not enough for a B. What if instead I made perfect score? Wow, it's getting me up higher and higher, right? So you can start to see how important it is to avoid zeros. What if I didn't make a 0 back here on this earlier quiz? Oh, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? Because making a perfect score way back then would put me in the B category. In fact, if I had made even the minimum score, it would have put me in the B category. So that's why it's so important to make time to do these assignments well. I don't want to confuse you by continuing to change the numbers. All that I'm doing is telling you how to evaluate your grade for the quizzes, how to apply a drop grade, and then the grades that we've earned so far, and how to use this example to determine how your grade is faring in this course when we have not yet finished the course. So I apologize for the long video. I do hope that it was helpful to you, though, and I'll be talking to you again. If you have questions, you can certainly email me. Oftentimes, if you have a question, others in the class have the same question, but a picture is really worth 1,000 words, and so excuse me, hopefully by going through this on screen like this, you have it as a reference. You can rewind in the video, you can skip over and look at the parts that you need. Thanks, folks, and we'll be talking to you again soon.